Welcome to the Abroad in America podcast, the only financial podcast designed specifically for expats living in America, where you go behind the scenes with financial planner, author, and speaker Jimmy Miller to learn how to make your time in America as financially rewarding as possible. And now, here's your host, Jimmy Miller.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Abroad in America. I'm your host, Jimmy Miller, and today we're going to get into one of the most misunderstood, most overlooked, and honestly, most feared parts of being a foreign national working in the United States. Yep, we're going to talk about the FBAR. Now, before you turn this off and run, stick with me. I know tax topics feel like the broccoli of podcast content, but if you're an expat in the U.S. with any kind of financial footprint back home, this episode might be the most important one you listen to all year. Let's start simple. FBAR stands for Foreign Bank Account Report, or in IRS language, which is basically its own dialect, it's called FinCEN Form 114. Here's the main idea. If you're a U.S. person and you have foreign financial accounts like checking, savings, investment accounts, maybe even certain foreign pension accounts, and if the total value of any or all of those accounts added together ever goes above $10,000 US at any point during the year, even for one day, you have to file an FBAR here in America. Now, I say $10,000 US, but that's converted. So if your account has euros in it, you have to convert to US dollars. And if those euros are worth on any day's conversion rate more than $10,000, you have to report on the FBAR. Even if the money isn't taxable, and even if you didn't make any interest, and even if it's just the account you kept open back home to pay grandma's bills or buy flights home, that's it. That's the rule. So here's where expats often get confused. The FBAR doesn't care about your passport. All it cares about is your status. If you live and work in the U.S. long enough to be considered a U.S. person for tax purposes, then these rules apply to you. And that includes U.S. citizens, green card holders, and people with certain work visas who meet the substantial presence test, which we discussed back in episode 3. So you can go check that out if you need a refresher on whether or not you're considered a tax resident here in the United States. So yes, even if you're from Spain, India, South Africa, or Brazil, if you're working here and you meet the residency test, Uncle Sam considers you a U.S. person for tax purposes and will tax you on your worldwide assets and income. And U.S. persons must report foreign accounts and foreign income as well. Okay, so the big question, why? Why does the U.S. care about the bank account you opened at age 18 in your home country? Well, two main reasons. The first is tax evasion and tax evasion crackdown. Historically, wealthy Americans hid their money overseas, especially in places with strict bank secrecy laws. The FBAR rules were designed to force transparency. It's not about you or me. It's about the big fish that the government wants to keep track of, to be honest. Reason 2 is global financial reporting. Over time, the U.S. has built a huge network of international financial rules. Banks around the world now share certain information, certain financial data with the U.S. And when foreign banks started cooperating, the government basically said, hey, expats, we know those accounts exist, so you better tell us about them. In short, it's about global compliance, not about punishing the average expat. Now, let's walk through how this thing works in real life. The FBAR is not filed with your tax return. You file it separately online through the Treasury Department's FinCEN system. Here's what the form asks for. The name of each foreign bank, the account number, the highest balance during the year, not the year-end balance, the highest balance it ever reached during the year, the address of the bank, and what type of account it is. Now, you don't have to upload statements, but you do need to have them in case the government ever asks you about it. The deadline? Well, it's due April 15th each year, but there's an automatic extension to October 15th. So most people effectively treat October 15th as the real deadline. The filing itself takes about maybe 20 minutes, and the hardest part is tracking down the highest balance for each account. So what actually counts and needs to be reported? Well, here's the big ones. Any checking accounts overseas, savings accounts, investment accounts, foreign joint accounts with family. If your name is on it, even with someone else back home, it has to be reported. Foreign pension accounts in some countries, accounts where you're just a signer and not even the owner. Yes, even those. Here's what it does not count. U.S. accounts in foreign branches, credit cards, loans and mortgages you might owe on. But the biggest surprise for many expats is this. Joint accounts where you're not even the owner but have signature authority often still count. So if your name is on your parents' account so you can transfer money for them, yep, that probably needs to be reported as well. Okay, deep breath. Let's talk about the penalties. The U.S. government takes the FBAR seriously, probably too seriously. There are two categories of penalties. The first is non-willful penalties. This is when you didn't file because you didn't know you had to. You didn't mean to hide anything, you were just confused. Usually, ignorance in America about a law cannot be considered an excuse for breaking the law, but in this case, there can be some leniency. The penalty, it's up to $10,000 per violation per year. But, and this is important, in many cases, the IRS waives the penalty when the person voluntarily catches up and files. Now, the second category is willful penalties, and this is when the government believes you intentionally hid the money. And these are the scary ones. The penalties can be up to 50% of the highest balance of the account or $100,000 US, whichever is greater. And technically, criminal charges are possible, though rare. So here's the good news, though. If you've genuinely made a mistake, the IRS usually gives people a chance to correct it through something called the delinquent FBAR submission procedures, basically a way to catch up without heavy penalties. Now, before you delete this podcast and move into a cabin in Montana, don't panic. Here's the thing. Almost every expat who learns about the FBAR for the first time has a moment of panic. That's totally normal. But once you know the rules, this becomes just another part of adulting here in America, like figuring out health insurance or understanding why milk here tastes so different. As long as you know the $10,000 rule, keeping track of your foreign accounts, and you file the form each year, you'll be perfectly fine. Look, being an expat in the United States comes with a lot of amazing opportunities, but also a few quirks, and the FBAR is one of the biggest quirks out there. It doesn't matter where you grew up or what currency you save in. If you're living here, the U.S. government wants to know about your foreign accounts. It's just part of the deal. But now that you understand it, what it is, why it exists, how to file it, and what happens if you ignore it, you're already miles ahead of most expats. Think of this episode as your yearly reminder that being global comes with responsibilities, but also that you're not alone in figuring it all out. That's probably enough for today's episode of Abroad in America. If you found this helpful, share it with a friend or coworker who's navigating life here in the U.S. In the next episode, we're going to dive into another thing that's mandatory to report if you're living and working in America, your investment and retirement accounts back home, different from your bank accounts back home, which we discussed in this episode. Your investments back home are considered PFICs, or passive foreign investment companies, to the IRS here in America, and can be as confusing and frustrating as the FBAR. So stay tuned to learn more. Until next time, stay curious, stay compliant, and keep exploring.
Want even more ideas, tools, and resources on how to navigate your financial life as an expat in America? Check out all the resources on Jimmy's website at baobabwealthabroad.com and subscribe to the blog to stay up to date on issues affecting expats. Don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. See you next time. Baobab Wealth and Baobab Wealth Abroad are DBAs of Baobab Wealth LLC, a Florida-registered investment advisor. This podcast is designed for general education purposes only and shouldn't be taken as legal, investment, or tax advice. You should seek out a qualified tax professional or licensed financial advisor to determine what is best for your personal situation.